Hey, welcome to the Ryan Got the Bread podcast, where we're talking about entrepreneurship, real estate, money, probably a little politics, all kinds of stuff like that. And my guest today is Wes Williams, who is a new real estate investor, but he's doing big things in the West Philly area.
North Philly.
Oh, you're in North Philly?
Yep.
Well, we'll talk about it. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy to be out here. Happy to be in Jersey.
All right, Wes, so tell me about yourself. What do you do? Where are you from? All that stuff.
Yeah, real quick. Born and raised in New York City. I was born on this little island called Roosevelt Island. It's right between Manhattan and Queens. We like to say it's in Manhattan, but it's connected to Queens. I'm originally an educator by choice. I do not teach, but I've worked in education management for about 6 years. New to the real estate game. I've been in it for about 6 months. Got 2 buildings in so far. One under construction, one that I live in and hacking, which is, living in the property for free.
The house hack.
Collecting a little bit of residual income. And yeah, I love life. Love my family, and just happy to be doing something different than what I've been doing for the past 8 years since I graduated. I graduated grad school, and I graduated my undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania years ago.
Okay. All right. So I guess let's get into it, man. Basically, what I want to talk about, which I was super excited to talk to you today about, is your journey getting started in real estate. And so my first question is why did you want to invest in real estate?
For a couple different reasons. When I was younger, my father passively, tried to do a lot of different things. He still continues to, he actually bought me to a house at one point that he was trying to get in this place. I'm from New York, and it's in this place called Elmont, New York, in Long Island. And this house was a drug addict that had previously lived in the house that left a dog behind. The dog actually died in the house from starvation, I believe.
Oh, dang.
But there was shit everywhere in the house. It was a whole mess. And I guess some people could take that as a traumatic experience.
Well, why'd you go to the house?
Because he's trying to buy, he bought it.
He did buy it.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a piece of shit house.
Uh-huh.
And he bought it.
In New York? Or when was this?
In Long Island. This is probably in 2003, 2004.
Oh, so the market was popping.
Yeah, the market was popping. And I remember going into the house and I was like, yo, why would anybody go into something like this? And he's like, it's a good opportunity. And this was a dramatic, introduction to this. Because I'm
wait, how old were you?
I was probably 13.
Okay, so old enough to get what he's trying to do, I guess.
Yeah, kind of, but I'm still kind of confused. I'm in a house full of shit and needles on the floor. It's
who would want this?
Yeah, I'm who would want this? He's grabbing guys because at first I'm I couldn't even walk into the spot because there's shit and needles on the floor. Mm-hmm. And I'm what is this? Who would want this? He's nah, it's good. I got it so cheap. And I'm this guy's crazy.
You remember what he bought it for?
I have no idea.
Okay.
No idea what he bought it for. I'm assuming it was very cheap.
I bet you whatever it was, it's probably worth pretty good money now.
It's probably worth a lot now.
New York.
Yeah.
That market.
Yeah. And, it's Long Island. It's not in the city, but still. And I remember seeing him go through that process. I remember seeing the guys come in and out because we had to put on gas masks. I was a kid and I had to get a gas mask even to go into this crib. And I'm going in the crib who could ever live in this situation? And after seeing it in the condition I saw it in, I was if anybody ever found out about this in their house, they would be horrified. It's like finding a ghost or a dead body in the house. Who would want to live in this? But eventually, the project came to fruition and things worked out. I don't exactly remember the nuances of how he sold it or what he did with it, but I just remember that as an experience of this guy bought a crib that was in terrible condition, almost as bad as it can get. I think the infrastructure probably wasn't even that bad. Looking back, it probably wasn't in as bad a condition as like.
Yeah, but you never seen nothing like
Yeah,
that.
I'd
You're
never
like,
seen
what the
nothing like
heck?
that ever. Yeah, and I'm like, some people do this, and I'm like, I always kept it in the back of my mind. Then I went to. I just started learning about real estate slowly throughout the years, and everybody talks about it like a wealth vehicle.
Yeah, it's funny because the real crazy thing is I have a similar story because my dad, he used to kind of like, I don't know if he was talking to me about it or if he was talking to friends or people, but I would hear him talk about, all you need to do is buy a house, rent it out. You don't really have to do anything after that. You get cash flow. Maybe you sell it or you buy another house, you rent it out, and it's real easy or whatever. And like that idea always stuck in my head, like from being like 13. I was like, you could just get paid to own properties. You don't have to like work to make money. That concept was crazy. So like, it's funny that you say that because, I talk to a lot of people and it's like generational knowledge gets passed down, even like the small little interactions is crazy like that. Because my dad was buying properties in North Philly and Nicetown. Yep. And he was buying them for like $5,000-$10,000, fixing it up, renting it out. Now, it's funny because I don't like that strategy. I don't like messing with the super, super, super cheap stuff because I'm not good at dealing with the tenants. There's crazy issues. Like the cops are coming. Like all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. But when you look at like the numbers, they always look super good. It's like, I only need, I'm getting like 50% ROI on this property if I get it up and running.
Yeah. The intergenerational knowledge is huge, though. I think that's a big difference between folks who kind of get this real estate thing and don't. It's like somebody's put this bug in your head and allowed it to like just crawl around and just do its own thing and just feed you all this wealth of information for you to just get the gears going. Because people who don't have that, like, they'll look at me like I'm crazy. Like, Wes, like, what are you doing? Like, you get all these weird properties in these weird neighborhoods. Like, who knows what this is? And coming from New York, like, the neighborhoods that used to be in the worst shape had the best ROIs, right? Like, these guys are
New York, I mean, gentrification.
It's crazy. And being born into that, I'm like, I've seen neighborhoods go from, abandoned, a whole neighborhood abandoned to being like multi-million-dollar brownstones lining the block.
Yep, that's the thing. And it's like a different way of looking at money. I think that's really the thing is like the way that the average person's brought up, the way that we're looking at money is wrong. Like the system is teaching you to work for somebody, be reliant on a job. Your healthcare is with the job. Like you are dependent upon them. And there's really no other alternative ways. Or it's funny, like I was having this conversation where someone said they don't want to take the risk of starting their own business. And my thing was like, it's a risk to work for somebody, right? Like, sure, you think, it's unlikely they'll fire me. But you know what happens? Like, your soul dies. Or at least for me, like, I mean, some people are happy working, but what if your boss says some off-color stuff to you?
Or your company goes under.
The company goes out of business, but they're like over you. Like, so if I need this job to pay my rent or even my mortgage, I have to do what they tell me to do.
Yeah, completely.
So the risk is them messing up, them going out of business, or them just being a jerk to me. That's
it's a lot. And that's what I started to realize too. Is like especially I've worked in education for years now.
What do you do? Yeah, tell me about that.
So I've worked in everything from charter. I mean, I've worked in everything from Head Start organizations to graduate schools of education. And I've had a number of different jobs within the education field. One thing I can say about the education field is that, like, it's very feel good sometimes.
So at least you enjoy kind of
sometimes
the objective,
right? You enjoy the objective, exactly.
The red tape part, and
you enjoy like the idea of this holistic mission and affecting thousands of children, whatever. But one thing I will say is that generally across the education field, you're overworked and underpaid. consistently. That's one thing I found very consistent in education. There's a lot of smart people doing it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you would think education would be in capitalism, who gets paid sets your priority. So why, in education, teachers aren't getting paid that much money. And, it's weird that's, the current state of affairs.
That's just where we are, and it's pervasive throughout the whole education system. But it's frustrating because you can have great minds and great educators. There's also a lot of nepotism in education. So like,
And everything.
and in everything. So it's like you're dealing with a group of people who are overworked, underpaid. Then
And
you
they
deal
mad.
with all the other issues that you see in other industries, right? With nepotism or bosses who don't know what they're talking about, things like that. And then it's like it's multiplied because now you just don't have the capital. At least like, in a job, like if you're in finance or something, work for a bank, you'd be like, my boss is shit. But like, at least I got the capital.
Yeah,
to
you
back
getting
it up.
paid, yeah.
Yeah, like in education, it's like, damn, my boss is shit. And I'm not getting paid. Like, what's up,
Yeah, that's not a business to get into to make money until we figure out a way to, pay people more or monetize it better.
It's not a money-making business. It's a feel-good business. And I think I've also learned that sometimes there can be, I think there's a drastic end of the spectrum where like you're either privileged enough to work in education because, you have things that have set you up in an opportunity where you don't have to worry about capital as much, or you're really disadvantaged, and so you're really trying to better the system for everybody who is disadvantaged.
And you got to sacrifice by not making a lot of money.
By not making a lot. Or maybe you just haven't been given the keys to like wealth, and so you think that this is like the only vehicle to help anybody in your shoes by, I don't know, helping the education system.
So tell me a story of your first investment property. Take me through all the steps, as if people listening. What I'm trying to get to is like some actionable steps, first steps, right? Because you just did your first deal not too long ago.
Yeah, back in May.
So like, what's the first thing you did?
First thing I did. So I moved here from Michigan. I was living in Michigan. I went to grad school in Michigan. After living in Michigan, I saw how people were just buying houses and doing things that people in New York weren't doing. So I was like, I got to get to some place that's not New York. So came in with the idea of buying a house. So that was the first thing, right?
That is the first, right?
I really wanted to get into real estate. I was like, I want to get into real estate. I want to keep a job, but I really want to.
When did you make that decision? When were you like, I'm doing it?
Years ago, I think, I've been fortunate enough to see like some of my friends and family members like buy houses and stuff like that. I knew I didn't want to buy a $500,000 condo, like 1-bedroom condo in New York, and I probably wouldn't be able to afford it ever. So I was like, if I'm ever going to be able to buy anything, you got to get into a market that's reasonable, especially like my career aspirations. That was the initial step. I had the idea. I knew I wanted to get something in real estate.
Okay, so I think in the Black community, we have like generally, we have a negative view on credit. Usually your first experience with credit is negative, or people tell you not to, mess with debt and all that. What was like your thinking about all that at the time? Like, did you have good credit? Did you know what to do? Did you just have it by accident? Like, how'd you like be ready, get to the point of being ready to be able to buy a multifamily property?
Yeah.
Like, was it deliberate or just by accident kind of?
It was a little bit of both. Like, I did the Rich Dad Poor Dad, read that.
That's a good book.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the gems. And after reading through that book, speaking to a lot of different people about how debt works, how money works, how to use money in your favor, I realized like a lot of the ways that I was thinking about just capital and assets and liabilities were totally off base, right? And I'm like listening to this guy, Robert Kiyosaki, and he's talking about I love debt, and this guy, and he sounds crazy, right? To like the average person, he's like, I love debt. Everything I have is debt. I owe millions and millions of dollars. He's like, I don't my assets work for me, and it sounds crazy,
Well, yeah, that's why I be posting stuff like that on Facebook. I'm trying to have $1 million of debt by next year, and people think it's a negative thing because they don't understand.
It's a mentality too, right? Like I had a friend. And his mother used to always say to us, like, debt is the root of all evil.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm saying. I think that's the general idea most people have.
And I think some of it may go back to your cultural upbringing and stuff like that. Like owing people, especially in the Black community,
you're not supposed to
owe people. Has a lot of
stuff.
negative connotation. It have a lot of negative consequences too.
Yeah.
But I think one thing I've learned, especially in buying the second property I just picked up recently, is that there's a big difference between having debt, bad debt versus good debt, right? And even me, I'm covered in debt right now. Like I have debt coming out.
Yeah, you look at your credit report, you're like, dang,
my
500 grand.
diving. Every single day I get an email from Credit Karma, your credit is going down. I'm like, I fucking know. I know it's going down.
But you're using it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't I bought a large percentage of my property that I'm in. I got for my second deal using credit cards, and in order to leverage credit cards, you gotta be willing to pull the trigger in a lot of different ways.
It's funny that you say that because first of all, I'm establishing a business line of credit, and the rates. See, this is the thing. The textbook says that you shouldn't use credit cards for stuff like that. But if that's your only option,
that was my only option. You
got to get it done because it's still going to be, as long as you don't mess up. Debt is like a weapon. If you're shooting the targets, that's cool. You just don't shoot the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's risky, but it's like you said, anything is risky.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of what you put your risk into, and it's it can be very rewarding, especially if you calculate properly.
And with the real estate, you don't need to make like North Philly, for example. I work for a commercial appraisal company, and I'd look at what they paid for a property on Diamond Street, kind of near Temple, 10 years ago. Yeah. And then I see it sold for $1.2 million.
I'm right on Diamond.
Oh, really? So we're going to. I want to get into that, but it's that is a life-changing amount of money on one property. Yeah. You're and not just your life, but your family, your kids, or everybody. So I get super excited about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I remember when I was living in Brooklyn, I lived right on the border of Bed-Stuy and Bushwick for about 5 years, and I remember there's a guy, and I was just renting. There was a guy down the block from me, and he was like, yeah, I've been in this neighborhood for 15, 20 years. He's like, I've seen this neighborhood go through all different kind of errors. And he's like, but I stayed in the same house, and I was one of the few people who kept my house. He's like,
he owned it.
He owned the house. He owned 2 houses. He said, I sold one of the houses. He said, and I have $1.5 million.
Oh my God.
And so my kids and I are good right now. He's and he's opening grocery stores, opening these random businesses that were actually failing in the neighborhood. So I don't know if he was the best in terms of business.
Yeah, but you own the right property in the right times. Right property,
and he can do these things now because he has $1.5 million to play with.
And I'm gonna get into this thing about gentrification, but I want you to keep going with how you did your first property.
So my first.
So you decided I'm gonna buy a property.
Yep.
What's the next? Did you talk to a loan officer? Did you get a realtor? What'd you do?
So I was just floating the idea around. I floated it to actually a mutual friend of ours, Jason. I floated it to Jason one time. He was like, I was telling everybody. I was like, hey, I just moved to Philly. I'm doing this thing for my job. I love education, but I really want to dive into real estate. And just check out this program, NACA. He actually sat down and he's like, let's talk about it. Let's see if you're really serious. I was like, I'm dead serious. Tell me where to sign up and everything. He told me about NACA, and NACA was a pain in the ass. It's the rite of passage into getting real estate. But looking back, it wasn't that crazy. I got a property that's about $400,000.
I try to tell people this all the time. They're like, it's so hard. I'm like, they're giving you a $400,000 property. Yeah,
free money.
And you're complaining.
I put about $12,000 down on that deal in total for everything.
So
closing costs and everything.
So this property is in North Philly?
This property is in North Philly, about 5 blocks from Temple, between Susquehanna and Diamond.
And then how many units?
It's 3 units, 9 bedrooms.
Dang. Okay. And how much was it?
$400,000.
$400,000. Is that the max for NACA? How high do they go?
So I don't know. You know, I I remember when I first went to NACA, they hit me with like the max you can get is like a property that's $320,000 based on like your income and all this other stuff. I went back, I countered them, and I was like, hey, so you're telling me that my max based on, and they base it, NACA is basically, it's the best, and just like a little caveat and plug for NACA, it's a great program because they base it off of your ability to pay rent in the past. So if you've paid rent consistently, then you're basically deserving of a mortgage, right? And if you can keep a job. Because the idea is like one of the biggest barriers to success in real estate, oftentimes, or even buying real estate, is that upfront cost, whether it's 3%, whether it's 5%, whether it's 10%.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have 10,
if
20
you can't come up with $20,000, then you're out the game. And so like a lot of people like count themselves out before they even know that. And I've learned there are a lot of other options to get $20,000. You know, I have $20,000 on a credit card right now that I can spend in 2 seconds.
Yep,
but like,
same.
you know, I learned about that. But before you learn about that, it's like to save up $20,000 in cash could take some people their whole lifetime. So NACA is basically like, stop, you know, worrying yourself. We'll come up with this front to cause. You just have to show us that you're reliable enough to pay essentially what you pay in rent every month. So if you're like, okay, I pay $1,000 in rent, that means you could get for $1,000 mortgage, you could get a property that's almost $200,000.
I try to tell people because they don't see the correlation between the sales price and the monthly payment, and it's like, yo, that's less than what you're paying in rent a lot of times.
Exactly, and NACA breaks it down to simple math. They're like, if you can pay this much rent, then you can get this much mortgage.
And I think the cool thing about NACA, that I haven't done NACA, but I've heard a lot, like you're another successful person who's done it, is that they do a common sense mortgage. Because when you go to the FHA or even a conventional loan, they don't care what your bank statements say. Yeah. You could be a millionaire. If your credit is, your credit could be pretty bad though. You could have like a 580, 620 and still, buy a property. But if you don't have that income on paper, if you're self-employed, they're going to give you hell. Yeah. NACA, at least, they can look, they
still work with you.
They can do whatever they want.
They still give people a hard time. Like it's not, NACA's not like.
Yeah, so how was it? You meet with a counselor, right? And then they tell you all this stuff.
I did one of these, I signed up for like the workshop. You have to do like a 3-hour intro workshop. Then you have to go to like, I think you have to go to a counselor. They had this, it was like the most, it was like, this is God's in it. And doing real estate has brought me closer to this higher power for so many reasons, because there's no way I can get this lucky back to back to back to back. Like, something's working in my favor sometimes. Uh-huh. Although it's anxiety inducing and crazy at all times, a lot of things are working in my favor. But I signed up to do the 3-hour session, and about a week later, I meet a friend of mine, and she was telling me, she's like, hey, like, there's a 1-day approval process, nationwide event where they come to Philadelphia, and because I think you have to go through like a 2-month, 3-month counseling period. Mm-hmm. Generally, they're like, you get approved same day if you go to this one event. Oh. It was like a month after I did the session, so I was like, shit, I'm definitely going to this. Uh-huh. Went to the session, got approved that day.
And what did they approve you for? A certain amount of money?
They approved me for a certain amount of money.
Okay. And, so was this when they approved you for the 320?
Yeah, it was like 320 or something like that.
And then you had to go back and say, yo.
And I basically came back to them. I counted them. I was like, look, like.
If you buy a multifamily.
Yeah, you're basing this off of my income and my rent. And you're telling me this is like how much I could pay on a mortgage. And I think the mortgage is like, I could pay a $1,800 or $2,000 mortgage, something like that. And that's what this equates to. And I was like, so if you're basing off of that, then if I got a multifamily and could you count the tenants and what they would pay as income, then like, could I get a bigger house? And they were like, well, yeah, like, I mean, like, I don't
See, that comes with asking the
don't
right
know.
question.
I still don't know what the rules are about NACA and why I was allowed to do that. And I hope I'm not throwing myself in a hole by saying this.
No, I think, with a traditional mortgage, they do that. So a NACA should definitely do that.
So I counted them and I was like, so I want to get a bigger, and I think the limit for NACA is like 700,000, which I should have actually pushed for. Now I'm looking back.
Yeah, right. But that sounds like a crazy number the first time,
especially for a first time. Yeah. So I was like, damn, even the 400,000, I was like, I'm about to get a $400,000 crib.
Yep.
And I'm gonna manage tenants and do all this crazy stuff. But I was like, I think the biggest thing I've seen in real estate is that you just got to do it. Like,
Yo, I tell people that all the time.
Like the biggest barrier to getting into real estate is not doing it.
Well, because people sit around and analyze and calculate, and then they talk to their friends or family, and they tell them, what if the tenants don't pay the rent? You're gonna be screwed. And it's like, you just got to do it.
And fear is contagious too. So like, I know I go to these like real estate investment club meetings.
Oh, you do? See, that's something I should do more about.
See, that's how I'll tell you this story about how I bought my second crib, but I learned so much from these events.
Yeah?
But the things that I do at these events is like, I'm getting contacts with people that I really want to use. Mm-hmm. I know some people who have been to those events since I started. And I started, I think, like maybe a month after I bought my crib just to like get different tips. I met guys on that first day who were like, I've been going to this for a year or two. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, they had all these books and shit. They were like, yo, check out this book. Check out Grant Cardone. Mm-hmm. I'm like, cool. You got all this information. I'm like, how many deals have you done? And like, I'm still like, testing the waters. And I'm like, bro, you're so knowledgeable. And you have all this information, but you haven't done anything.
That's my biggest pet peeve, man. Because I sit down
and a lot of them.
I meet with a lot of people. They'll reach out to me like, "Yo, I want to get started." You know what happens? I post a picture of the escrow of the settlement check. Yeah. Man, everybody messages me like, "Oh, I want to get involved." Blah blah blah. And then I'll be like, "Yo, you got to get your credit up. Save money." Blah blah blah. I'll hit them up a month later. They ain't do nothing. I'm like, all right, forget it. Like. You're out of here.
Like, some people are doers and some people aren't. I mean,
they like the idea of it, but they don't want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think one of my challenges to myself is I need to learn how to be more of an analyzer and less of a doer. Because when I see something that's good and it looks good, I usually just pull the trigger. And
I'm the same exact way.
And then I'll run the numbers a little bit more carefully later and figure it out.
I've been struggling with that a lot lately because we're looking at bigger and bigger deals.
Yeah.
And
the risk is higher,
The risk gets higher, but like my ARV for every flip house that we've ever looked at has never been wrong.
Yep.
I actually short shot it on this current property that we're actually in right now. So I think I need to trust myself. Yep. Because been on point with that, and I have an Excel spreadsheet. I put stuff in, I calculate, but at the end of the day, I use a little gut.
Yeah.
and I think that little
got me close. I was like, say a little prayer before I the trigger.
That little gut, though, like if you think about like athletes, right? They ain't sitting around analyzing every little thing all the time. Like when you're in it. Sometimes you got to make a decision.
Take that shot.
Yeah, you got to, and the same thing like in this house, the finishes that we decided to use and the type of, like whatever the shot is, like, should we add a bathroom in the basement or not? I look at comps, so I do have I have information, but it's the gut at the end of the day that if it's 50-50, I just shoot the shot and move on,
Pray for the best, yeah.
And then I forget about it. If I mess up, then I mess up, So
I mean, and you're experienced, so you have a couple deals under your
now. But I actually get worried about that I get overconfident, because I'm looking at a pretty big deal right now. Yeah. I've never done a unit that had commercial in it. There's a special Pinelands commission for where I'm buying, so that adds all this red tape and stuff, and I have no clue about any of that stuff. But something tells me I want to grab this property. You know what I mean? So I'll just go do it.
When you feel inclined, it is an anxiety-inducing thing. That, with this second property.
Well, hold on. Don't go to the second one.
Okay.
you went through NACA. You did the workshop.
Yep.
Then you somehow, luckily, they had this thing where they'll prove you on the spot.
Yep.
You kicked it back to them, said, I want to buy a multifamily instead of a single family.
Yep.
How'd you decide where you wanted to buy, and how was the search? How did that search go? Because, I tell people, buying a multifamily, well, obviously I'm in Jersey, so it's a little different, but like, there's not that many. And so you're going to live there. So you got to find something that you are willing to live in and is a good investment. So I feel like that's the hardest purchase.
Yep.
How was that?
My basic strategy in terms of thinking about it was, I don't know much about real estate. I don't know much about getting tenants. I don't know much about managing a building. But I know I'll be fucked if I can't get tenants soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want, like, my idea was I wanted to hack it out. So, like, I wanted to live in it. And that was a NACA stipulation. You're supposed to live in your property. Some people buy it, some people don't. But you should. So I wanted to hack it out, wanted to live in the property. Didn't want to have to pay a mortgage like I did for the calculation that I told them. And I was like, how am I going to know how to get tenants? Like, where would be a good... And I was like, the best markets where you're definitely going to get tenants are by campuses. Like, the demand is always going to be there, as long as schools exist, which, hopefully it is forever, or until, like, this college tuition bubble just pops or something crazy. And there'll always be a demand. Like, students want to live by the campus, and if you're, like, within a proximity of, like, or a radius of, like, 10 blocks, you're going to be able to attract students if you set your prices right. And I had the flexibility by living there to be a little bit more flexible with my prices. And now I'm looking back, I'm like, damn, maybe I was too flexible. My tenants pay less than most everybody on my block.
What's really funny about that? I had the same mentality when I started. I was like, well, even if I get $100 less a month, maybe they'll stay longer, blah, blah, blah. No, you should always charge the market rent. There's very few reasons not to. But for some reason, that gets in our head,
the anxiety was real. Like, I was sitting on this property, and I was like, the reason why I moved here, I just spent, $2,000 for everything, moving into this new spot.
You needed people. Spot. You were like, I ain't playing. I
finally got somebody to sublet my old crib.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a month after I'd moved
out. Oh, wait, so you were renting
I was renting a spot in Manhattan.
And you weren't even out of your lease.
I wasn't even out of my lease. So I was like, yo, I'm paying bills.
You're taking the big moves. Yeah. You were like, yo, I'm doing this. I don't care about this lease.
Yeah, and I was like, I got to get out this lease. I got to get somebody to take over my lease.
Fire.
I got to get somebody to rent out this. And I didn't want
And you didn't know nothing about leases. You didn't know nothing about any of this stuff when you did it.
I didn't know nothing at all, man.
So by wanting to do it,
just by having
you figured it the fuck out.
And I think, at a certain point, after I closed, I started, learning things, and I started, posting my spot on Craigslist, and I had a potential person who's going to take over my old lease. I had, a couple people hit and, back out on the new building, but I was like, I'm not worried about renting on my old spot. I know I'll get that. I just don't want to pay a mortgage payment.
Mm-hmm. Out your pocket. You want them to pay.
Yeah, I was like, because then that defeats the purpose of me moving from my beautiful one-bedroom loft in the middle of, one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Philadelphia to, this shitty little North Philly
it's a little
college town.
It's nice, but it's a little sketchy. You go down a block or co
it's sketchy as fuck. I live right off of Susquehanna, and
I see you kind of on the edge.
You're on the edge
of the campus.
Yeah, you go a couple blocks away,
it's
it gets
a little
crazy.
hood,
it gets a little crazy. And that's just the reality situation. And I wasn't. I think that's a good place to be, especially unfortunately the way gentrification works.
You on the edge of the hot spot. So
exactly.
if it continues to grow, it's gonna.
And I would make out like a bandit by having the cheapest property in the hot spot.
Killing it. So how much? So it's a triplex, 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
You live in one. Well, you did live in one. So what was the rent?
I still live in one.
Oh, you still live in it. Okay. So what are you getting on rent on the other 2 units?
So I have each unit I rent out for about $1,400.
Dang. So 28 gross, and then what's the mortgage?
My mortgage comes out with taxes and everything. Comes out to be about 24.
Oh, so it's straight break even on the gross. That's pretty cool.
And then I.
So you're living for free. Basically, you got a crib where you can live for free.
I live for free, and then I had a roommate stay with me. Actually, international. I have a 3-bedroom apartment to myself.
Yeah, you don't need 3 bedrooms.
I don't need 3 bedrooms. So I had a international student that just stayed with me for 1 semester. I might get another one, might not, depending on my financial situation.
Nice.
But he was paying like $600 a month.
So how'd you find these people?
I posted everywhere. I think that's where the real hustle starts. Is like, I got myself in a bind, so I was like, I don't want to pay the mortgage, and I think when people put themselves out there and you're like, you don't want to do something, is when you're really gonna.
You start grinding. You're like, oh shoot,
yeah, I was like,
get these people.
I made a flyer at one point.
Yeah.
I didn't actually post flyers, but I was
you were about to do it?
Yeah, I was like, I'm about to post flyers on Temple's campus.
Did you screen them? Like, what you do as far as that? Check their credit?
I use this app, actually. It's I got to think of the name of it. But basically, this app, it does screenings for you. And,
like, it'll do the background and the credit and all that?
Background and credit check. So I had some good...
Nice.
Some good...
What made you do that? Did you find that on your own? Did you Google it?
It's called Avail. Avail.
Okay.
So I was just... I actually didn't want to talk to my coworkers about it at first. I got some coworkers.
They start acting funny, man. Once you start getting outside money, your job will act funny.
Like, oh, word? West got money? I'm like, y'all don't even, that's the crazy part about real estate, too. Everybody always assumes you're doing it like, oh, my, like, this guy
they think you get rich.
Yeah. I'm like, yo, I'm even poorer than before I started this journey.
Zero money.
Yeah. It's an investment. That's what people don't get is, like, just because I have a building doesn't mean I'm a millionaire.
They don't understand net worth.
They don't understand net worth either.
People play for cash in the bank. I'm playing for net worth.
Exactly.
Because if I sell everything, it's funny. Like when Forbes comes out and says so and so's like a billionaire, right?
Yep.
They don't have $1 billion in the bank.
Yeah, no.
It's like how their stocks, their company, their real estate, and people get confused by that.
Some assets are more liquid than others. Like like you could add up. If I appraise my property, especially, like, maybe I'll have, a value of
like
$200,000 or something like that,
Which is more than that, way above the average already.
Which is, above average, and that's awesome, I'm 30 now. So that's awesome, but, like, how much liquid cash do I have? You want to see my bank account? I got zero right now.
Grant Cardone says cash is trash, and I agree with it. I be posting cryptic stuff like that on Facebook all the time.
I am as close.
They don't get it.
I am as broke as I've ever been in my life since I was a teenager. This day.
That's how you got to ride, though.
I mean, like,
That's how you got to do it. I believe in that so hard.
That's not what my sleep patterns are telling me, but I get it though. I get it.
But like if something happened, you could get the money.
Yeah, I can get the money back
when you have assets. You can get that money.
Yeah. And people start talking to you differently when you're like, oh yeah, I got a building. They'll be like,
yeah.
The other day I was like, oh yeah, like I posted on. I hate to shout out another podcast, but Bigger Pockets podcast. I posted on their website, and I was like, hey, like I'm having some trouble with my closing costs. They asked me for like an extra 10 to 15K like that day.
Oh, what?
And I was like, yo, like I told them I was like, I gotta hold off. I gotta figure out how to get this money. But I posted on the podcast, I'm like, hey, I got trouble with my closing costs. Can anybody help me out? And people responded like, oh yeah, I could figure out a way to get you 10. And like, people will do stuff like that when you're dealing with real estate. But in real life, if you're like, hey, I need 10K to like go to get Jamaica today, like people are like, what the fuck?
That's why I like real estate, right? Because it's very simple to analyze and it is very stable, right? Like if I have an investment property, what it's worth today is probably what's going to be worth tomorrow at least. I mean, maybe not, a couple of years. Typically they go up, but it could go down. But my rental income is super solid. People always need somewhere to live. So like, if you need to lend against a property or, it's really probably the best thing. Because if I have like a computer business or, some other thing, it's more ethereal than real estate.
The way things work today, like, you could pop or you could drop.
Yes. So
on any given day, if some bad news comes about.
Wait, so they gave you 10 grand or something?
No, nobody. I figured out a way to get it.
Oh, okay.
But like the fact that I could put out a blog post and have real people who I never even met be like, oh yeah, we could figure out a way to get you that, and
Yeah,
do you want to do a partnership? I had a guy who reached out to me and said, "Yo, I'll give you $15K and we can figure out a partnership deal on the end." And I didn't wind up using it, but I went and met this guy in person the other day, and he was like, "Hey, like it seemed like it was a cool deal. I would have done the numbers, but like how'd it work out?" I'm telling him how I got it, and he was like, "Yeah, like next deal we have, let's work together and get another deal." And you meet these people, I'm like, "That's fire, yeah." Like,
so this, I feel like to an average person that sounds crazy, but what I want to say is like, when you like get into this game and you become a real player, like you do it, if you take action, the right people are out there. Like you can get stuff done.
Yeah.
You can get financing. You can get money because, like you were talking about the business credit card, like getting $20K on a credit card sounds crazy till you start having property, till you start having assets. The bank starts loving you, But the average person, you're just working your job. It's hard. So, but it's only one step away. You know what I'm saying? Like owning one property can get you to like a way different level. So I want to encourage people a little bit. Like you can level up really quickly.
Yeah, people will speak to you differently because, like, I wouldn't encourage anybody to miss out on a mortgage payment, and I've yet to do so, fortunately. But like, if I ever like missed out on a mortgage payment or two, like I would have a good 20 or like at least $5,000 like in a very quick minute without doing anything. I mean, like you should pay your mortgage payments and you should pay all payments on time. And I think like that's another thing that I think a lot of real estate people can argue about, like what you pay on time and like what debt you don't pay at certain times. I think it can be beneficial to try and pay everybody back on time.
Well, I mean, that's the source of all my power is my credit.
Your credit, yeah. I mean, but some people take hits on purpose, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, I maxed out this business credit card. I'm not paying it back for like 3 months because I gotta make sure that I pay off whatever." I mean,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
And that's what I'm saying. You gotta do what you gotta do. But even us having that conversation to be like, "Hey, so yeah, that's true." Like some people do that. Like the average everyday person is like, they're either falling into debt and letting it cripple them, or they're like, "I'm making every payment on the first month."
Yeah, it's finance strategy. Even if you gotta kind of go negative a little bit.
And that's what I'm saying. Like some people, like I'm starting to realize, like sometimes in order to get to green, you gotta be willing to go. I mean, that's the same thing as leveraging debt.
That's what I'm talking. Like I like what you said because I've been thinking about this a lot. Like I never keep money like just straight in the bank, and I'm yelling at myself. I'm like, you're too crazy. Like if I look at my savings as down payments for properties. So like,
I just maximize mine. Like,
as soon as I hit the number, I want to buy something. So I'm not sitting around on cash. I want to deploy the cash because I know it's going to come back to me. But once you deploy that cash and you have no money,
it's scary.
It feels a little scary.
I feel naked right now.
Yeah.
I took a screenshot of my bank account this morning. I won't tell you what's in it, but it's very.
No, I do the same thing, but that's the risk you got to take. And I think people would tell you not to. And to the textbook, you should have some reserves, but you got to do what you got to do. All right, so that property, you're living in it, rent-free, NACA program, pretty much hooked that one up. Oh, wait, you hit me up saying after you bought the property, there was like a leak or something. What the heck happened with that?
Oh, my God. The day I was supposed to close, I was working with an agent that had helped a lot of my friends. And shout out to him. I won't mention any names, but he was managing a lot, and I could tell he was managing a lot. And for a first-time home buyer, as I was, I wanted, like, you want to be coddled. Like, you want to have you want to have...
Yeah, because you don't have no clue what you're signing.
You have no idea about
signing
anything.
Mad papers.
You're signing papers. It feels like you're signing... And $400,000, like, I've never... That's damn near $500,000. And that's like some debt that's going to be in my name for who knows how long. So it's a very scary process. And as I'm going through it, as any first-time home buyer probably is, especially, I'm sure, like, you're a broker, you know how first-time home buyers are. They want to know everything. If they call you at 11 p.m. asking you what it says on line 7, you better be able to answer them, or else you're going to hear them probably call you 3 or 4 times after that. So I was going through that, and I didn't like. He wasn't as receptive to me as I would have.
He's
liked.
busy.
Because he's busy.
He's a big agent.
He was doing a lot of deals,
tough.
I think, and I was like, I was frustrated with him. I was like, what's up, man? Like, I need you to meet me at 5 o'clock today because I need to know what's going on line 5.
Okay.
And he's like, 2 days later, like, yo, line 5 is a no clause. We actually X'd that. I'm like, bro, like I read line 5 over the past 2 days 50 times and called you 5 times and you didn't respond to me. He's like, my bad, man.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Because like as the realtor, everything is super casual. Like you do it all day long, so it's like it's fine. But for the first time home buyer, I really empathize with that though, because I had a super good experience when I first bought my first property. The realtor sat down. I think she explained the contract for 2 or 3 hours to me. And she knew I cared about it.
He did it with me too.
Oh yeah.
He actually sat down. He took me. I think we were at like a Starbucks. He was like, "Hey man, like I want to make sure that you're understanding everything that we're going through with the process." He went line by line and explained each line. You know how you like initial by each one of those little lines, all the different clauses
on every line, dang.
And he walks me through everything. It was very helpful. It was just like sometimes. I mean, like as a first time home buyer,
you sit around and you read something, you're like, "What does this mean?" Oh shoot!
Or like, somebody contacts
my life is
you,
wrong.
or like, God forbid, like the title agent is like CCing you or something. Like, can you get back to the title company right now? And he's like, I'm gonna get back to them. Like it's like 2 a.m.
I do that stuff too, because I know when stuff's actually urgent, when it's not, and so like the customer may not.
Exactly. For the customer, everything is urgent. And I'm seeing things. I'm at work. I'm like,
it's $400,000.
It's $400,000 on the line. Yeah. So I'm going crazy. But long story short, it was the day before I was supposed to, or the day of closing, and everything's going as planned. And I'm like, look, man, my father called me up. He's like, that night, he's like, you've been having a lot of problems with your agent. Like, are you sure he's legit? I was like, get in the ear. I think he's good. And he's like, well, like, I don't know how he does it, but like, what I hear is that you have to get like a walkthrough. Like, you should get a walkthrough that night of or the day before or something. Like, you got to do a walkthrough. And I'm like, and my father's purchased a couple of things, but not like he's not.
He knows something.
He knows something, yeah. And he's worked with a lot of different deals, so he has some experience. But I'm like kind of like, nah, like, you're old school, like you're not new and hip to this. But I was like, I take his advice a lot of times, unwillingly, but sometimes I'll do it anyway. So I was like, I don't know.
Good.
He probably doesn't know what he's talking about.
You gotta check yourself.
Yeah,
like,
but I was
you think
like,
you know, but you be like, let me just
do this anyway. Yeah. And I do. It's like
wait, he didn't schedule it. They were gonna do a walkthrough.
And we're gonna do a walkthrough, right? And I was looking it up online too. I'm like, let me double check, fact check my pops, see what he's talking about.
Should do a walkthrough.
And I was like, everybody does a walkthrough, right? And I'm like, I called my agent. I'm like, yo, we gotta do a walkthrough. He's like, well, like we can't do it tonight. He's like, kind of dodging. I was like, yo, we're doing a walkthrough. Like, we'll do it at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning if we have to do it. Like, I'm doing a walkthrough.
Yeah.
I decided, and I was like, and I'm already fed up with him at some point. I'm like, yo, I don't give a fuck what you say. Like, I'm doing this shit. Like, And
if I gotta go there myself,
if I gotta go there and do the walkthrough. So actually, that's what happened.
Oh, he didn't come?
He was like, yo, man, we're about to close.
He gave you the lockbox?
He gave me the lockbox. Like, you had to do the walkthrough, man. Like, if that's what's going to make... I'm like, bro, like, it's...
Well, that's a little wild.
It's wild, yeah. So I go to the property, and I'm, like, walking around. I'm like, I hear something, like, from the faucet, like, leaking. I'm like, what is that? I find, like, a little leak. I'm like, okay, well, I got to call up and say it's a little leak. I'm like, whatever, though. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. I go to the basement. The basement is flooded with water. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? He's like, are you serious? He's like, I'm coming right now. He came in like 15 minutes. He's like, oh my God.
So how did you feel when you seen that?
I felt like choking him out. Like, I felt
you were mad at him, but were you like
I felt
scared?
Relieved.
Because you didn't sign nothing.
I also had to bring like $2,000 to the table at closing, and I was like, well, fuck, man, I don't gotta. I could die another day, like I was like, I could hold this $2,000 for a little bit longer and hold this off. But I also felt like choking him out. But
so then what happened? He rushed now.
He rushed.
He almost had you buy a house.
He rushed out. He's just like, oh shit,
water
dude,
in the base.
Like this is crazy. I'm like, yo, there's a little leak there. I'm like, why am I showing you this stuff? He's like, oh, I'm like, whatever, man, like, fix it. And so he went and called the seller and everything. The seller was like, oh my God, we're so sorry. We had no idea. I don't think it was actually that big a deal. Like one of the water tanks, like the hose in the water tank had just bust. I don't know how it bust, but like it hasn't happened since I've had the building yet.
Oh, okay. The water heater broke.
Yeah.
Did they replace the whole water heater?
They replaced the whole. I don't even think they needed to, but at that point we were so close to closing.
Like $1,000.
Yeah, they just replaced the water heater, redid the whole siding of the house for that little leak.
Oh, really?
Redid the whole siding, and then they gave me a check for like $3,000 at the end of the deal. So I kept that $2,000 that I was gonna bring.
So you made money buying the house.
I made an extra $1,000. So like, look, take $3,000 in case you feel uncomfortable. If you feel like the floor.
The nicest seller of all time.
I mean, the way my agent, and it's very smart of him. The way he structured the deal, especially with NACA, is like it's very hard to be competitive with the NACA.
With the loan,
mortgage.
right? Yeah.
Because anybody who has any ounce of urgency could undercut you or overbid you or whatever. So like generally what he did with NACA was like you give some people what they want.
Money.
Just give them what they want. Like they're asking you for like the asking price for that crib, I think it was like $404,000. Like just give them $400,000. Like everybody else is trying to undercut them for like $380,000. They're like,
nah, full
in
price.
actuality, Wes, like you're not paying any of this.
Yeah.
So like, there's no point of you trying to undercut them. You're gonna come out $12,000 anyway.
I super agree with that. People try to get super cute on negotiating the price, and it's like, especially like on a finance property, like, what is the difference really between $400 and $395?
And me giving them that $400 allowed them to feel comfortable with sitting on the contract because for me to close, it took me like 2 months to close on the contract.
60 days to close? Okay.
Yeah, like we had to revise the contract over and over, and I'm like, damn, good thing that we have just gave them what they wanted because they might have just bounced at some point and be like, yo, there's other people that want to buy it.
That's a major key because people, like even if you're on FHA, you're less attractive than a 20% down conventional borrower.
Exactly.
Or even VA, because the VA has a funny appraisal and they got funny requirements.
And even earnest money, I'm like, yo, how much earnest money? Because through NACA, you still have to put down earnest money. So I was like trying to get as little earnest money as possible.
Yeah, how much did they want?
I mean, I think that they were asking for like $10,000 or something.
Oh, really? They asked for
or maybe $5,000. But I was like, yo,
I don't have that.
$5,000,
that's
like,
more than the down payment that you do.
I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm not coming out $5,000, and then I think we negotiated for like $500. And even that, I was like, damn, I'm putting $500.
Dude, $500 don't hold a property anymore. Like when
exactly,
I do like $500 on like an $80,000 property.
Exactly,
but I want at least like $1,000.
And that's the thing. We gave them what they wanted. They were willing. I think they also understood that some people. It depends on who you're dealing with. I think some people will be more sympathetic to the idea of being a first-time home buyer and like hold your hand a little bit. Even the sellers will be like, oh, that's good. Like somebody else getting into real estate, And some people are just like, who cares? I just want the best deal for myself.
That's nice because most sellers just caring about the green, man. Even me. I mean, I'm taking the best deal I can get. Exactly. It's just what it is.
Exactly.
Dang. All right, so you got that.
But you might change your opinion if you were like a multi.
If I had a lot of
if you're
money,
a multi-billionaire, you may be
care.
like, that kid needs that property.
Yeah, the extra $10,000 or a little bit of 60 days.
Yeah, just let him get it. I actually want to see him succeed.
Yeah, for sure. So you were so happy with your first property that you're already looking for another one. What's up with that?
No. I mean, like I saw friends and family that were coming to visit me, and they're like, "Wow, Wes got a building," and everybody's like, "How did Wes get a building? He works as an operations manager. Like, how could he afford a building, a whole building?" And especially a lot of people from New York, like, "Who's Wes? Like, who's helping him? Who's financing him?" I was like, "I did it all myself. Like, this is all my money. I think my brother gave me like $1,000, and he didn't even need to. I just needed it for my own security. And I actually wish he hadn't, because it actually showed up on my NACA bank statement as a flag.
Start asking all these questions.
Who gave you $1,000? I was like, damn, I wish he hadn't give me that $1,000. But shout out to G, because he helped me out. And I was just passively like thinking about what I should do next. The woman next door they're doing a lot of renovations on my block, mostly students. There were not older tenants, but like folks who were like in their 20s and 30s, who were treating the building next to me like shit, like in terrible condition.
They're students too.
They weren't students.
Oh.
They were just older adults, people just living there. And I was like, terrible. Like, they were not great tenants. And I used to just walk by and just be frustrated, like, because, the students are already terrible tenants in that neighborhood with trash and shit like that. You guys are just, like, exceptionally bad, too. And you happen to be right next door to my building. And so I would always, like, speak to them, and I was like, what's going on? They're like, well, our landlord is terrible, like, so things break, things go this, and, like, we treat the building like shit because he doesn't care and all this, and, like, it's just a really bad situation.
Distressed property.
Distressed property. So like, and it's getting worse. I wound up asking the woman, and some of my tenants in my buildings are friends with them, and I was like, what's going on with this building? What's going on? They're like, that building is terrible. One of the guys who's a girlfriend of one of my tenants or boyfriend of one of my tenants, he was like, I used to live in that building. He's like, it's in terrible condition. He's like, and so like just living there, I don't think people even care. Like, they let things go to waste in that building. And the landlord doesn't do it. Like, nobody's collecting rent. It's just like a mess. So I asked the girls, like, you have the number for the owner? Like, how much do you think this building would even be worth? She was like, yeah, sure, I'll give you her number. I call the owner. The owner's like, hi, it's an older Jewish woman. She's like, hi, like, you're interested? I was like, yeah, like, sure.
She can't wait to get rid of that job.
I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I live next door. Like, this building, I heard it's a piece of shit. The tenants hate it here. You clearly don't care about it. Like there was a hole in the glass for like 3 months.
Oh dang!
In the front glass window on the first floor.
These are all good signs of money, man.
And I'm like,
more jacked up.
I'm like, this is terrible. Like, and it just sat there. I'm like, this is terrible. A dog lived on the first floor. I'm like, this is outrageous. This is outrageous. Like, and I contact her and she's like, yeah, like I've been trying to sell it. Nobody wants it. This and that. I was like, well, shoot, like I'll figure out if I could buy it. And I'm bullshitting the whole time. I'm like, I really just want to see it. I'm starting to passively look at different things. Let me see this property.
It's a fire story.
I go inside. I'm looking around. I'm like, damn, this is bad. Like, like, yo, I knew the people who lived there. And I was like, damn, they live like this,
Yo, when you go into houses, it's like, yo, people are living like this. Houses happening.
And she told me, she's like, don't judge me based on this. I was like, oh, my God, I'm trying not to. But like, oh, my God. But shout out to them because they're beautiful people and awesome musicians and everything. But, damn, yeah, it was pretty bad. And I'm walking around. I'm like, damn, like, how does a property get this bad? Because it was technically done. I think like my building and that building were done around the same time, and I think that was like in 2014 or 15.
Oh, like recently fixed up.
Yeah. So I'm like looking. I'm like, I know my pipes.
So it's just bad management.
I'm talking about holes in the wall. They had I found out later, like, didn't screen the tenants. Like, apparently there's a guy who was putting tenants into the building who didn't have anything to do with the building. So, like, they're paying this guy, and they're frustrated. Like, we paid this guy all this money. Now the owner's asking us for money, and this guy's making out like a bandit. Because he's like, yo, I just collected, like, $10,000 from tenants over the past 3 months. And I'm like, if I'm a building manager or an owner, somebody doesn't pay me 1 month, I'm checking in excessively. Like, yo, what's up? Everything good? Like, is it your
people running Ponzi schemes out of the property?
Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm like, this is outrageous. Like, I've never heard of something like this before. This is outrageous. She's like, well, I'm in the process of evicting them. I was like, you're already in the process? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm like 90% through this process. She's like, actually, they should be out by next month.
It's hard in Philly to evict.
Yeah, and I was like, dang, for real? She's like, yeah, they've been in here for like 7 months not doing anything. I'm trying to get them out. I was like, well, shoot. Like, she's like, I'll show it to you even more extensively when they're moving out. So it was like the week before they left. They all know me. They're like, Wes, are you getting the property? They were like wishing for me to get it.
Oh.
But also like kind of weary.
They're going to be a nightmare for you too, though.
Yeah.
Promise.
They were kind of weary of me because they were like, are we getting evicted because of Wes? I was like, it's got nothing to do with it. Like, I don't even have the power to evict anybody. Like, and now I'm sure the girl who gave me the number is probably like, I wish I wouldn't have given him that number. Whatever. They all get evicted. The building's empty as crap. I found out they were like hot wiring, electric into the building. The water was fixed up where nobody was paying for water. Like, there's so many liens on the house.
It's a very Philly story.
There was like a right when I got it under contract. Eventually, I got it under contract. We figured out a price, negotiated.
Wait, how did you figure out a price? Like, what is going on? Like, you were just like, I'll buy it?
Yeah, well, I mean, like...
Did she want to sell it? Did you convince her?
She definitely wanted to sell it. You know, she was like, well, look what your property's worth. And it was $400,000.
Like, my property's not jacked up.
And I was like, yeah, well, your property's all jacked up. And I was like, I think your property may be worth like $250,000.
How'd you come up with that?
I just guessed it.
You literally just guessed. You were like, mine's worth $400,000. Let's knock off $150,000.
You know, I just say my prayers sometimes.
Well, you're real wild. I at least look at some comps. So super wild.
I looked at comps too. But the thing about comps in that area is that most of the properties are already done.
Oh, okay.
So, and then like the only comps that would, there's nothing.
Yeah, you got to discount it back down off of the repairs.
Based off some level of repair. Sometimes I had a contractor come and look at it too. And I was like, how much is this building?
You knew how much it was going to cost to fix?
Yeah, I had an estimate. He was like, oh, like we come up with like 60, 70,000. I was like, 60, 70,000? Like, damn, like that's a lot of money. Okay. I was like, so let me just...
So you would be in the house like 320,
and
330.
Me just being the idiot that I am, I was like, let me discount the house by at least 70,000 or 80,000 to get down to what the repairs would be, so I could break even up 400,000. Not even thinking that I actually was undervalued on my building for $400,000, because they could have charged me more. I think like whoever appraised my building did me a favor.
What did it appraise for?
It appraised for $400,000.
Oh, okay. Magically, all the time.
Like,
their appraisers do that. It's just whatever now.
But like, it really should.
That's super suspect. That's a whole topic.
It really should appraise for like $450,000, I think.
Oh, okay. He was lazy. He was just like, well, if no one will yell at me if I make it 400.
Exactly. And I think I learned about this like gross rent multiplier thing and everything. Like, I think it should appraise for at least $425,000.
Okay.
But anyway, like, she eventually kicked him out. I figured out the equation. We negotiated on the price. I got it down to about $280,000. I was saying like $260,000. She was trying to say like $320,000. I was like, there's no way I'm ever gonna pay you $300,000. And then she eventually was just honest with me. We developed a relationship through our arguing after a while. And she was like, look, I got liens on this house that I gotta pay off. And
for property tax or water and stuff?
Property tax.
She owned it outright.
She owned it outright.
Dang. She's like, how long she owned the building for?
Oh no, she didn't own it outright. Actually, she had a mortgage on it too. But she had backdated all kind of stuff. I don't even know how backdated she was, but she's like, a sheriff had actually come by and put a sheriff sale sign on the property.
She was losing it.
Yeah.
Or at least like she's not paying it.
But this is a multimillionaire. I was telling her, I was like, look, am I getting screwed up by buying this property that's about to go into foreclosure if I don't buy it? And she's like, no. She's like, I'm not going to let it go. She's just like, letting it go to waste until she can't let it go to waste anymore.
Yeah, I do that with some water bills sometimes. I'm like, I don't feel like writing this check.
Exactly. So she's just letting it go. And I'm like, I was like, one day I come home, I was like in New York.
She don't even care.
I was like, there's a sheriff sale on the house, a sign. And she's like, oh, I'm calling the sheriff. She had all these.
Yeah, now she cared. Yeah.
And she cared. And, they took that off actually the next day. And that was the last I've seen it. But
how'd you do the financing?
How'd I do financing?
Yeah, how'd you get the money to buy the house?
I went to this real estate investment club, and I was sitting with these guys. It was so interesting. It said, how do you buy a house with no money down? And I was like, oh, it's like, probably.
That's the class when you went there while you were trying to get this house?
Yeah, it was like when I was in conversations with her about trying to get under contract.
Okay.
I was like, let me go to this thing. Maybe I'll learn something, and maybe I'll actually learn how to buy a house with no money down, because I know I don't have any money, and I'm just kind of pulling this woman's leg right now, telling her I'm going to buy her crib. I go to this spot, and they're like, teach me all these strategies, and I'm like, this is cool. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can go to these classes and be passive, just learn, and you can read all these books. But I was in there like,
you were doing the deal before you had the information to do the deal.
Yeah,
though.
So
that's how you do it.
I remember I came up to one of these guys. He's like a multi.
Like, make the problem and then figure out how to solve it. Don't be solving problems that don't exist yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I came up to him, and this is when the reality hit me that he was even on another level, because these guys are crazy. And I realized a lot of these guys who are deep into real estate are actually crazy. And I was like, look, man, I'm thinking about buying this property. He's like leading the panel on this thing. I was like, look, I'm thinking about buying this property. I'm telling him about the deal. He's like, do you have it on the contract? I was like, no. He's like, get the fuck out of my face. I was like, yeah, get the fuck out of my face. And he's like, and I was like, damn, like, and he just like dismissed, like that was it. That was the last time we spoke. Like, yeah, like,
damn.
I was like, damn, like, I can't even. He's like, and he like mentioned me as he was on the panel. He's like, some guy came up to me today, like, can you help me out? He's like, I can't help anybody who doesn't have a contract. He's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm not gonna help somebody who doesn't have a contract. I was like, damn. I was like, well, I gotta get this shit under contract, like, for anybody even like throw me a bone, like.
I like that though, because people be playing, man.
Yeah,
like,
they bullshit. There are a lot of bullshitters. And even if you get under contract, like, yeah, it was
that
a slap
is crazy.
In the face. Yeah, it was a slap in the face. I wish I knew the guy's name, but he's like a real estate guru. You like, And I just happened to see him, and he was passing by, and he talks to everybody. He talks to everybody, and I was like, yo, like, you think you can help me with this deal? He's like, you got a deal? I was like, yeah, I got a deal. And he just like blew me off, didn't speak to me again.
So then what happened? How you figure it out?
So at that same seminar, I'm listening very closely, taking my copious notes. So I'm like, this is a reality for me. Like, some guy was like, I met this guy. He was like, hey, like, do you have an LLC? And, I'm like a chess player in life. So I just do things sometimes when I hear him. And I'm like, oh, I could probably use an LLC one day. I just signed up for one day. Get an LLC. And I was like, probably like right when I bought the building initially, I was like, you can buy buildings on an LLC. Next one I get, I'm going to do LLC. So let me register for LLC. I think it was like $100 to get it. Let me just get this, to just have it. It was sitting there. And these guys were like, well, basically, if you have an LLC, we can help you establish business lines of credit. And they're like, if you have a credit score of 680, or maybe even 650, like, it doesn't even matter because you can, I forget what it's called, where you can get on somebody else's credit. I forget what that process is called. But they were basically like, you can get business lines of credit.
For your name.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they were like, you can get business lines of credit if you have these credit scores, and it's fairly simple, and we'll help you get it. There's a fee associated with it that we charge, but you'll have business lines of credit that are that are purely associated with your EIN, that won't affect your credit score. I was like, what? Like, let me see what's up with these guys. It's either that or try and get like a personal line of credit, which I met another guy within the same week, and he was like, he's buying huge commercial spaces. He's like, I was like, how do you do it? He's like, what I do is I go to the bank, and when I go to the bank, I just ask for a personal line of credit, and I do it at like 10 banks. And I was like,
see, that's where I messed up, because the line of credit seems like the easiest way to do stuff, because then you can just use the money however you take it out, you pay interest, but then you can put the money back in, boom, boom, when I have a deal. When I went to one bank. See, this is my problem. They were like, "Oh, you need $1 million in assets before we'll even talk to you." Really? And I just was like, "Oh, well, I guess I can't do it." But yeah, you got to go to 10 banks. Certain banks want to lend on different stuff. I just realizing this because I did the same thing. I just applied for a whole bunch of business credit cards. I got, I'm like close to 50K.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh, now I'm finding all this money, because now we have like a Home Depot credit card that we've been using, so we got credit on that, and it's like opening a whole new world.
Yeah, they did it for me. So that was like looking back, like I paid them about 10% of what I made, which is a lot, But
it is a lot.
I had no clue, like I wouldn't have gotten.
Yeah, you pay because you don't know.
I don't know. You pay for you.
You probably could have just applied.
I probably could have just applied myself.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, I ran into someone that did the same thing. They charge you like 10 points on, if they get you 50 grand, they want 5,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're just business credit cards. Why don't I just apply for myself?
Yeah, you pay when you don't know.
Yeah, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I always tell people, it's better to have done it anyway. Like, even if it costs you more, sure, that sucks.
Now I have a crib.
Like, so who cares,
So,
So you use credit cards to buy the house?
Yeah, basically.
Wait, but it was 200 something.
I had about 12,000 saved up, so I used a hard money lender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used a hard money lender, and they required 20%.
They gave you the rehab money.
Gave me the rehab money.
20%.
Well, tomorrow's gonna be actually the appraiser comes out for the first draw. So
okay.
I've been like on these guys, like, yo, make sure you do this like that, do this like that. Because that draw is going to get me over the hump. Right now, I'm financing things on my own.
It's funny because I'm doing a home ready, which is a conventional, like a 203K, but it's a conventional version.
They're probably a little bit more strict on those.
They're super strict, and they don't give you draws until after they only do 2 draws. So I'm fronting all the money right now. So I have no money in my bank account either because I'm fronting
we're on the
all
same,
this rehab.
We're on the same page.
But
I'm fronting rehab too.
I get excited about it. I don't care.
If
I spend $40,000, it's coming back to me.
That's true.
I don't care.
The thing that I'm excited about is I overestimated my construction costs.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, so I estimate that the repairs will probably be about $40,000, and I got some guys. What's the property? How many units is it? Same setup as mine.
3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
For $30,000?
Wait, what do you mean 30,000?
The rehab? That's it?
40,000.
40.
Yeah,
that's cheap.
It's all cosmetic though, right?
Oh,
so I have I'm gonna redo the floors. There's a couple holes in the walls.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
But like I said, the electric and the plumbing was done.
Oh yeah, that's the heavy
stuff. 2015, 2014, and it's all set up
like fine. A new property. You just need to make it look pretty again.
It looks disgusting though.
Nice.
It looks nasty.
I love a disgusting property.
It looks disgusting. I just took out all the appliances today. Because they're just in terrible
condition. Are you doing the stuff yourself?
The cabinets are salvaged. I'm not doing any of it. I got some guys.
Okay, that's right. Don't do the work yourself, bro.
I haven't even touched it. It's weird. I go in there and it's as somebody who has $0 in their bank account, they treat me.
You a boss out here.
Wes, can you take a look at my work? I'm like,
damn right.
I don't like that. And they're like, well,
I can make it better.
And they've done this shit for their whole lives. Well, this. I'm like, I just don't like it. Just take it up. They're like, take up the whole shit. I'm like, yeah, take it all up.
Damn.
Not me. I'm just
like a boss.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Damn, I don't even be doing that. I'll be like, I'll live with it, man. That's all right.
Nah, today.
I like that. I gotta get more asshole-ish a little bit.
I'm nice to you. These guys love me. I think.
No, most people do that.
One thing I think that has been great for me is I've worked with a lot of black contractors. They're all black contractors.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I've been trying to find some. Well, I got one.
And I think and I've noticed this. A lot of people. It's the most racist or race biased thing is real estate. I look at the Asian guy who bought a building. He has all Asian contractors. These guys don't even speak English. I'm there's
a reason why there's mad laws specifically on real estate and discrimination because it shaped our freaking country.
It's crazy.
It's
I look at the guy. There's a. A lot of it's just the GCs. If you're a GC. All your contractors are probably gonna be people who know or have grown, whatever, But this guy, it's all black contractors, and they do try and look out for me. I've given these guys about, in total, maybe $3,500 of my own money, and with that $3,500, I'm asking for a $14,000 drawer. Oh
yeah, I feel you.
So they're stressed. They're getting stressed right
That's
now.
What's up?
I'm yo, rip up everything, do everything. They're they're we even getting paid right now? I was
dang.
Nah. You're not even getting paid, but do it, because I need it.
But maybe then the next one, you see, it revolves. Maybe your budget's fatter on the next one. You can.
I told them that. I was look, things will get better. You guys are. I'm broker than all of you.
Right People now. Don't get that.
And they're like, what? So how are you paying us? I was like, my credit card or something else.
I know. I'm like, can you take a card on PayPal? Because I don't have any. Cash.
I had the biggest headache with PayPal. I'm never using PayPal again.
Why? What happened?
Oh my God.
Because I use it, so that's how I've been paying contractors is credit card, PayPal.
That's how I would like to. I tried it. My GC.
And a lot of these guys aren't good with technology.
He's bad.
Yeah.
He's he can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
This guy has given me his social security number. He's giving me all of his bank account information. He's giving me everything.
Because they
just told me to process the payments for him. He's just.
I did the same thing today. Literally today. My business partner did it actually, but he signed the guy up for PayPal and paid the card, and then it has to transfer it to his bank account.
This is what every time I do anything for him, I told him he has to get Square. I set up his Square account.
They don't know
Mind you,
nothing
I
about
have all. I'm like, if I was a terrible person,
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
good thing I'm not. But like this guy, and that's why it's trust. Like I remember even one time this guy he asked me, he's like, I got to go down to get his grandkids in custody. He's like, he's an awesome guy. He's a preacher and everything. He's like, I got to get my grandkids in custody, but I don't have the money right now to get a truck. And this is how we built our relationship. I was like, you don't have money to get a truck. I'm getting credit cards like every day in the mail at this point. And I was like, I'll just throw the truck on my credit card. He's like, you would do that for me? Because he was like, he asked me at first. He's like, can you give me $1,000 to go down there? I was like, $1,000? Like, what do you need $1,000 for to go to North Carolina? He's like, how else am I gonna get down there? I was like, I'll get you a rental car. He's like, you would do that for me? I was like, yeah, like I was like, can you drive? Like, what the fuck? Like, I'll get you a rental car. He's like, well, I don't want to put in my name. He had like an outstanding balance for rental car. I was like, you know what, man? Like, I'll even put the shit in my name. He's like, for real, you would do that? And I was like, yeah. It cost me $200. Yeah, this man, he's getting money for having a finder's fee for the spot. And he was like, yo, we're gonna split that.
Nice.
I was like, you do that? He's like, yeah, man, like we look out for you. I'm like,
that's what's up.
And he cuts costs for me, like like I'm looking at like how much a roof would cost, and he's like, I'll do a roof for like $400. Like
what? Oh, you got the flat roof. So
yeah. He's like people overcharge. He's like, some people will charge you $2,000 for this roof. Like, all you gotta do is get a ladder and go over this.
Yeah, it's like a couple hours for the flat.
He's like, I'll do a roof in 30 minutes, and I'll charge you what it costs.
Here's a question, right? I've been thinking about this. Do you feel an extra responsibility to like balance the economic situation of Black people? Do you feel like a greater responsibility being a minority that like you got to do better to like break the cycle or like make change in the world or something like, or are you just doing what you do?
Well, I mean, I'm an educator, so like, I do a lot of work to help Black and brown communities, and a lot of my life's work at this point has been centered around making sure that Black and brown people are better off. I think one thing that I'm starting to realize more and more is that, like, we live in capitalism. And, you could accept that or not. It's just a reality of where we are. You can like it or not. It's just the reality of where we are. We live in capitalism. And there are some big wealth disparities amongst races that are exacerbated through capitalism. And as much as I love education and, what education does for Black and brown people in this country, I think, you need to have a certain level of financial literacy in order to be successful in this country. And I think our education system does not do that. And so I think I say that just because I think in real estate, I think it's important to keep those same things that I thought about education at the forefront of my mind in terms of as I approach real estate, as I approach education. I don't think it is always race-based. I want to see everybody educated and being successful. But I think because in education, there are huge disparities, right? If you look at test scores, if you look at like how schools are funding and funding strategies across states and local governments, there are huge disparities. You also need to think about that when dealing with real estate. So yes. It's not like my building actually happens to be all Black tenants. I didn't necessarily do that by choice. Maybe it was me being, some people are more receptive to me too. Like when I was showing the building, I'm like, I didn't try and tell people I was the owner at first, but it eventually came out. They give me a benefit. They're like, hey, that brother is like doing it. Like I got young tenants in my building who like look up to me. The other day, my tenants throwing a party, and they
might ask you, like, "How did you do this?"
They all ask me, especially the men. They're all like, "Wes, you bought this building that we live in? Like, can I get that building?" And like every young Black dude on my block knows that I own this building, and they all have had one-on-one conversations that they have personally asked me to have with them about how to buy buildings. So I think like, when I think about the service that you can do for other Black people,
being an example.
Yeah, it's being an example, but also just like, lending a helping hand, like, and making sure that you're available to speak to these people when they have these questions. And like,
So you do. That's really what
I do feel
right,
like
because when they ask you something, you want to try to give them like you care. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause I have a rental property like that where the girl was asking. She like couldn't believe I'm the owner because I'm wearing sweatpants and stuff all the time. And I'm like, oh, you're the owner.
Exactly.
And they're like, start asking questions. And I feel a responsibility to deliver my information as much as possible because it kind of goes full circle, right? Like your dad going to the property did something in your mind.
It changes everything. For
10, 15 years later to, execute on investing. You know what I mean?
It changes everything. And I think the reason why I think there's some onus on me to give back, and I don't have anything to give. I'm not like in the position of power or anything, but I do have properties, right? And I have some type of
information.
Information
is more valuable than all that.
Yeah, and so I have the ability to share information, and I think it is extremely important for me to be able to share information, especially with people who are just like me. So especially for Black men, for Black people in general, I feel like as little and as quickly as I've been able to acquire these two properties, it has nothing to do with I did go to a great school. I do have a great educational background, and I do have some steel balls, that have allowed me to get through this process. But that has nothing to do with anybody. It's not a barrier for anybody else. Like anybody could have done this. Anybody could have done this. If you had $12,000 or not, you could have.
Yeah, you don't have to buy a $400,000 property.
You could buy a cheaper property. Yeah. And so just passing on those jewels of knowledge and being there for people, I think is tremendously important. Because even for me, the reason why I watch folks who I see as successful, whether it's celebrities or business personalities, is because they are constantly dropping gems. That's why I listen to podcasts. I just get so many gems, and if I can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, it's like a life changer. For you to be like, oh shit, I had a tenant call me the other day. He's like, hey Wes, whenever you have a chance, give me a knock because I want to talk to you about real estate. And I knocked on his door that day, yo, what's up, bro? Everything good? He's
That's fire.
I just wanted to ask you, did you have to leverage debt? And I was like, yeah,
a lot.
I had a guy who lives across the street. He told me the other day, he's like, how's everything going, man? I was like, yeah, everything's good. And he's one of the guys I used to hoop with them across the street. He's maybe 24, 25. And I told him I got the building. I was like, I got the new building too. He's like, wow, man. He's like, how'd you do that? I'm like,
buying the block for real. And
he's like, yo, is it true that no? I told him, I was like, yo, but the truth is I could barely buy a sandwich right now. I'm dead broke. I'm over leveraged in every way possible. I don't even know what credit cards aren't maxed out right now. Man, I'm just over leveraged. He's like, for real? He's like, damn, that's terrible. I was like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm trying to just let it ease in and live with it. He's like, so it's true. He's like, you have to go down before you go up. I was like, yeah. I was like, you got it. I was like, that's called leveraging debt. And you really have to, depending on what type of financial situation in, sometimes you got to go pretty hard into debt to get out.
Yeah, it's funny because that is the number one thing I think is super important for our community is being able to ask that simple question to somebody and them give you an answer, right? Because in sports we can do it. Right, we might have somebody who went college or a pro or something like that, so you can ask them, how should I train or what should I do? That one question is super valuable. Yeah. If I don't see nobody around me able to do something, then I just don't even think about it. And how am I going to get help? And that's really that. So when you're talking about listening to people that are doing super good, I think that's when I was bringing this podcast back, I was thinking I can't provide that type of information because we don't have multi-million-dollar stuff yet, right? But I want to make it relatable to people starting out, right? Because the problems you're facing now are not the same problems that you're going to face in the next couple of years, especially if you keep leveling up. Even me, like the issues that I was having when I did my first property, where we did all the work ourselves, is way different than now today. So I'm hoping that this is super relevant for people, trying to get started or like taking that first step, because it sometimes is not relatable when a millionaire is talking.
Yeah, like, you can listen to Grant Cardone talk about it, whatever.
He's like, I paid $8 million for 64 units. But actually, the concepts are the same. So it actually is the same, but sometimes it's hard to filter that.
And it's the same thing as anything else, right? Like, I don't think, it's relatability. Like,
Yes.
I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of black youth look to a lot of sports figures and rappers and other celebrities because they're young. They're making moves that they want to move, that's why they aspire to be like that. But there's not a lot of like young, black entrepreneurs.
Like, here's my
looking up to and wanting to be like.
If I have a legal question, I don't know a lawyer to ask. I don't have a cousin, so I'd have to call one and they're going to send me a bill. Other people, their cousin, brother, uncle, parent, somebody knows a lawyer that you can at least ask one question to, and that is so valuable.
So valuable.
But it's funny, like on my YouTube channel, like I don't have a ton of views and all that stuff, but like I actually get a fair amount of messages from people, and I'll ask them like, how'd you find me, or why'd you click my stuff or whatever? And a lot of times they're like, yo, you were the only black, brown, some people don't think I'm black, but I'm the only minority on there, so that's why they clicked it. It's a relatable, however I'm talking or whatever, it's conveying. So like it's so important for representation, because we have a different cultural like vibe, the way we're talking, slang, whatever, and just different cultural background. So that's like a big mission for me, to make this accessible to the average person and kind of cater to black people specifically, because I kind of understand that. Where we're coming from.
I think it's massively important. I think like I was reading something the other day about like the wealth gap.
Black people their net worth is like $5, and the average white family is like $100,000. And it comes from real estate, and it's decreasing. And it comes from real estate. Most people's wealth comes from their house.
Exactly. And it's like,
and we don't own enough.
And it's crazy, the situation that we're in. And I think it's just it's the lack of exposure and access that we have. And so like I think folks like watching the Breakfast Club, like I know DJ Envy is like really big on real estate now, and I'm sure he's affected millions and millions of people and has made even if it's just like 15 or 20 people that have done deals just because DJ Envy said it. That's millions of dollars in wealth potentially.
And then they're talking to their family,
talking to their friends and stuff like
and it's in the lexicon now. Like it's cool. It's cool to own your own. Like, I mean, that's why Jay-Z's killing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's super. I mean, I think like, I think you could think of real estate just like you think of anything else. Like, you could still have a job. You could still do your own thing. You could still like have hobbies. You could still do kind of whatever you want. It just eases the burden. I think we're coming to a point like where we have like all these what do you call it, like gig economies. You could almost look at real estate like its own kind of gig economy. And
except for it's passive.
And it's passive, and it's
the
even
other
better.
Stuff you got to actually physically do.
Like even me, like sometimes now, like I actually enjoy. Like I just got Uber on my phone like last week because I was like, damn, I'm short on cash. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
I've done some Uber before.
I just do it like whatever. Especially if I'm like up early in the morning, I'm like, damn, like what am I gonna do this morning? Like let me just make a quick $50 in like 20 minutes.
That's cool.
But like there's like it's becoming increasingly more popular for people to kind of find vehicles of getting cash flow or vehicles of wealth that allow them to be more independent. And
that's a goal. Financial freedom, my only hope.
Real estate is a huge wealth vehicle and a way for you to be more financially secure, financially stable, and just have like freedom to do exactly what you want to do.
That's why I got into it.
Like, you're able probably to do this podcast, not because you have a great job, because you got the real estate backing you up.
Yeah, I'm getting paid. I'm getting rental income right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'm not getting rental income for like another 2 weeks, but
no, it's racking up every day.
That's
you're getting
true.
paid.
That's true.
And little
That's
dollar
true.
sign, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It's happening the whole time.
That's true.
But
and my tenant's paying like the 15th too. Like, so I'll probably see a check tonight.
But so where can people find you online? What's your Instagram? What's all that stuff?
Yo, to be honest,
are you even on it?
It's something that I gotta work on a little bit.
Are you hiding? Why? What are you doing?
It's so funny. Actually.
Your girl got mad at you. You had to delete it.
It's funny. My friend actually asked me the other day. She's like, Wes, I figured it out about you. Like, you're a drug dealer. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, where are you getting this information from? She's like, you don't have social media. You don't work a full-time job anymore. Like, you're buying buildings and doing things in real estate with seemingly no money. I was like, I get what you're saying. Like, actually, the way you describe it makes a lot of sense. But unfortunately, that's not the situation. I don't know. I don't like to think I'm very elusive. I just,
cool.
just where I'm at.
I'm
I have
sure
Facebook though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so find you on Facebook.
I should probably get an Instagram eventually.
Yo, you got to make some stuff. You got to show people what you're doing.
Look at all these. I got so many photos. I take photos of everything.
And you don't post them.
And I got the Pixel. Google Pixel's the best photo.
Yeah, you got all this technology. You only post nothing. I don't understand. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's why I was excited to get on the podcast. I was like, this is my opportunity to share my stories. Otherwise, it won't get told unless somebody else tells you.
Well, I super appreciate you for coming. My last question before I let you go is, what would your advice be for someone who is doing too much analysis and hasn't started? What should they do?
The analysis paralysis. I would say,
stop being a little bitch and fucking.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say it. Like, grow some fucking balls. Like, go ahead and do something. Like, do. But I take heed of everything I said just now because I am not out the woods when it comes to debt. Like,
You'll be all right.
I'll be all right, but like it is scary. But I would say, take a little risk. I think, if you find yourself being over analysis, you only have one life to live. There's a lot of ways to get out of debt if you find yourself in it, and insurmountable debt. This is America. America was built in a way that allows you.
Yeah, they won't throw you in jail. You'll be all right.
Yeah, America is built in a way that allows you to take shots and actually encourages entrepreneurs to take shots. This is the American way. And banks and everybody supports entrepreneurs. The government supports entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs generally go into debt to get where they are. Entrepreneurs generally go through pain to get where they are. Living a comfortable life is cool and everything, but it's not that interesting. If you want to have a fulfilling life, you got to take a couple risks and take a couple challenges. It's gonna be scary, but I can't speak for everybody. I have no intent, and I've traveled the world. I've done a lot of things in the short life I've lived, of living like this streamlined life of, kind of having fun, kind of being boring. There are highs and lows in life. Just ride them, and go hard.
I feel you. Well, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem.
All right, guys, that is the Ryan Got the Bread podcast with Wes Williams, and it was awesome. I think we talked about a lot of good stuff. See you guys later.